Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to our live sessions. Last month, we didn't have any live sessions, so sorry for that. It was our break time, so we were on break, and we have started this month again. So it will happen every 15 days, just like last time. So it's happening now, and the next one will happen 2 weeks from now, next to next Saturday. Anyways, thank you for joining. I don't know if anybody is online or not, but welcome to one and all. Now, today we are going to start with one of our subscribers uh, who asked questions in one of my other chats, one of the comment sections of one of the videos that we had. So uh, let's just go back and see. Da-da-da-da. Oh, yes. So, first of all, thank you, everybody. On June 2nd, because we didn't have any sessions in June, so I couldn't inform you guys about this. But on June 2nd, our channel uh, got 1,000 subscribers. So, thank you, everybody. Thanks for making 1,000 subscriber rich. Thanks for making our group 1,000 strong. And as of today, we are at 1,043. So thank you everybody for that. Thanks so much. Now, I informed everybody on the YouTube using the YouTube post. And so one of our longtime subscribers, QQARKK, Quark, he asked me, actually he had asked me this question before as well, but somehow I was not able to see it on the chats, on the comment section. But this time I can. And so this question is regarding the video that I posted a long time ago, about 2 or 3 months ago, about how sugar is such a dangerous thing. Okay. I hope everybody can listen to me. I don't know if you can listen or not. I hope you can. So if you can hear me, please let me know in the comments, because we had an experience. Oh, very good. Yes, please let me know. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, so I am audible. Thank you so much. I'm still new to this medium, so that's why I asked these questions. Anyway, so the question that Quark asked me was, so his comment. He says, I agree that sugar does indeed cause obesity, which was the main message in that video. And he said that because it's very high in calories. But I also said fats do too. However, while there aren't any healthy sugars, there does seem to be both good and bad fats. And that is absolutely correct. Further, he says, I think you'd said all fat except trans fats probably is healthy, and your evidence pretty much amounted to the sugar industry funding lots of the studies criticizing saturated fats. And my point, that is Quark's point, was that those two facts can be mutually exclusive, and you can't dismiss studies simply because they are funded by people with a vested interest. Now, here I would like to differ a little from Quark. If the funding is done by a party which can be affected both positively and negatively, or negatively by the results of the study, that there is a consensus in the scientific community that this study will not be, the results of this study should not be taken seriously. But as you said, yes, there's a probability that they can be mutually exclusive. I don't exclude that probability. And then he asks if there are any reliable studies to support claims that saturated fats are healthy, and if any of those studies showed causal links. Now, interestingly, in the video that I shared with you, Ansel Keys, along with one of his colleagues, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you, Blueberry. So in the same video that I shared, about the problems with sugar, I also mentioned a study, and in the description of the video, you can go and see. I've given the link to that study. So what Ansel Keys and his colleagues did is they did a study in which they replaced the saturated fats with unsaturated fats, oleic acid, or something like that. And the results were not very encouraging because, as a result of replacing the saturated fats with unsaturated fats, the result was that the plaque in the blood vessels, the cholesterol, the bad cholesterol in the blood vessels, reduced. But it did not reduce the heart disease probability. So you can replace saturated fats with unsaturated fats, which will, take away the bad cholesterol in your, which is deposited in your blood vessels, in your arteries. But that still doesn't reduce the probability of you getting heart diseases. And that's why they didn't publish it much, and it was discovered much later by other researchers. So that study is still there. And he wanted to learn more about the health effects of saturated fats, particularly from meat or dairy. Yes, I also watched this documentary, uh, which was produced by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and uh, I think the name is very appealing. I forgot the name, but there was medical research in this documentary, wherein, oh, I'm sorry, my voice is cracking now. That's I'm sorry for that. Anyways, so this medical documentary, it talks about how we can replace the saturated fats from animals with saturated fats from plants, and then we can get more benefit out of it. So I totally agree with Quark's uh, point of view that yes, plant fats are much better than animal fats. So that's why avocado and coconut oil, even though these are very saturated fats, coconut oil is about more than 80% of coconut oil is saturated fat, but still very good for our health. And there have been long studies. I'll share it with you as and when it comes to my notice. But yes, as a consensus, scientific consensus, we can say, as a medical consensus, doctors have agreed that fats from plants are much better than saturated fats from plants are much better than saturated fats from meat and animal fat. So that's that. Okay, now we have a new question here, which is a great question. Why plants are always green? Oh, this is fantastic. I think just the other day I was talking about this in one of my classes. So this is a very interesting question. Thank you for this question, English Chacha. Yes, why are plants green, or why are plants mostly green? Now, except for when the seasons are changing, the leaves change color, and so they become more of reddish or violetish. For most part, leaves and grasses and trees and plants, they are green. But why are they green? This is a very, very good question. Thank you for asking me this. So, before I answer this question, let me ask you this. So, have you ever seen a rainbow? If you have seen a rainbow, you must have observed that a rainbow is composed of seven colors. Mainly, most people say seven colors, some people say five colors, some people say 13 colors, but most agree that rainbow has seven colors in it. Now, these seven colors, what is the middle color out of these seven colors? So we memorized it in our school days. It's called Vibgyor. The formula for memorizing the colors of the rainbow is Vibgyor: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. So seven colors. Now, if you think carefully, you'll see that green comes in the middle. So On the other side of the green, on one side of the green is you have three colors: red and YOR, red, orange, and yellow. And on the other side, you have violet, indigo, and blue. And in the middle sits green color. What causes variations and affect different foods or medicines on two individual bodies? Which is good for me is not good for the other. Okay, thank you, Kumar Sandeep, for asking this question. But let me first answer why plants are always green, and then we'll come to your question. So, a rainbow has 7 colors. The middle color is green. So that's fact number one. Now let's talk about nature. Nature always favors effectiveness and not efficiency. What do I mean by this? And how does that connect to this simple question of why plants are always green? So, first, let's talk about what what do I mean by saying that nature seeks effectiveness and not efficiency? So we think that nature is very efficient. There's no waste in nature. Everything is useful somewhere or other in nature. And so we have this idea that nature is very efficient. But I think nature is not efficient. Nature is very effective. It's very inefficient in solving the problems in the ways that humans can solve. For example, why do we not have wheelie feet? Our feet, some animal that is the size of humans, or even bigger animals like elephants, giraffes, and things like that. Why do most terrestrial animals have legs? Why do we not have wheelie or roundy eggs or spherical or circular legs? Because if you think about it, a circular shaped leg would be very efficient, isn't it? That's why buses and cars and trains and other vehicles have circular wheels. Well, the reason why the nature doesn't fit us with wheelie legs or wheelie things to go around is because, of course, it is efficient, but it's not very effective because the natural terrain, is very variable. Yeah. So legs are best suited to go on any terrain, not only on plain, but also if you have to go through a shallow river, or you have to go up a mountain, or you have to go down a valley. Well, in that case, nature favors effective structures such as feet and legs, and not efficient structures such as wheels or wheelie legs or wheelie feet. So nature always favors effectiveness. You should be able to do. You should be able to face the most number of probable cases around you. Some of them in much better way, some of them in not as good way, but still you should be able to navigate all the various probability that you come across, and that's effectiveness. But what's the link between this nature favors effectiveness and not efficiency with the color of plants being green? The green comes in the middle of a rainbow. That means the wavelength of green color is in the middle. It's not too high wavelength. It's not too low wavelength. What do I mean by that? The red color has a very big frequency. They have their frequency is very high. So the wavelength is very low. On the other hand, violet, the other extreme of the rainbow, red is one extreme, violet is the other extreme. In case of violet, it's the opposite. The frequency is very low, but the wavelength is very high. Now, what does a plant need? A plant needs sunlight so that it can make food via the process of photosynthesis. So, if nature were efficient, we are talking about nature being efficient or being more effective than efficient. If nature were seeking more efficiency, just like a factory or a software program. If nature were like a factory, like a software program, it would seek efficiency, and so it would try to consume the plant or the leaf or the tree would try to capture as much sunlight as possible so that it can make as much food as possible. And what color attracts, what color consumes the most light, consumes the most sunlight? It's black. Black does not reflect any light at all. And so, if nature were efficient or nature were efficiency seeking, then all our plants would be black in color. So, but that's not the case. Nature seeks effectiveness. It doesn't matter if it's winter or summer. In summer, you have a lot of heat, you have a lot of sunlight. In winter, you have very less sunlight. Nature wants that it can get the middle path of the wavelengths of sunlight so that it can keep making food by the process of photosynthesis in much more effective way. If it seeks red, if the leaves were, let's say, black in color, they would be very efficient. If the leaves were white in color, they would not be capturing any light at all, any sunlight at all. But the green is the color that is in the middle. So that's just the appropriate, what do you call, the optimal. The color green has the optimal wavelength, optimal frequency is the middle frequencies, and it's the middle wavelength so that the plant can keep on making food via photosynthesis all through the year. So the question is it looks very simple, why plants are always green, but the answer, as we just discussed, it took about 15 minutes of our time. But I hope we could understand why plants are green. Nature seeks effectiveness, and so should you. Whenever humans have gone on this path of seeking efficiency, it's not very good for us, and in the long term, we always suffer. So always seek effectiveness instead of efficiency. Always be the generalist rather than being specialist all the time. I hope that answers your questions, English Chacha. Now, on to the next question. The third question that we have for today. Why are there zombie-like homeless people in some city in the US? Okay, well, this is zombie-like homeless people. Yeah, it's. Let's talk about that after I answer Kumar Sandeep's question. So he asks, what causes variations in the effect of different foods or medicines on two individual bodies, i.e., one food which is good for me is not good for other person. Uh, Now let's talk about what can give you a feeling. So the variation in the effects of different foods on different people can be of two types. One is objective variations, other is subjective. What is objective? Objective is something that applies to all humans, for example. Subjective, which is unfortunately in most cases we have the effect of a food on our body, is subjective, we have found. And so let's first talk about the objective difference of effects of different foods on different people. We are all different individuals. And when I say that, I mean in objective sense. How? Well, we might, for example, there might be twin brothers or twin sisters or twins who have very similar genetic DNA in their cells, who have very similar uh, who had very similar ways of growing up, who had very similar nurturing from their parents. It's in most cases that's what happens. But still, one, for example, can have food allergies such as nut allergies, and the other might not have. And what might be the reason for that? Well, the reason is that you are not only you, but you're also what's in your gut. And so the gut bacteria that you have in your stomach, in your belly, in your big intestines and small intestines, but mostly big intestines, the large intestines, it defines what you can eat and how will you metabolize it, and a lot of things about the effect of food on your body. Now imagine two twin brothers. One of them played a lot. He stayed with his, I don't know, grandparents in the countryside, and the other one just went to city with his parents. Now, the way they grow up, because the one in the countryside would be, experiencing uh, more different types of foods and different. He will be, the probability of him playing in soil is much more than that of the city boy here. So by the time they are, let's say, 15 or 16 or 20, the gut bacteria that they have in their body, on their skin, inside their uh, gut, in their stomach, in their mouths, is much more different than you think. And majority of the food digestion and signaling of uh, things to brain, that I like this food or I don't like this food, or yes, I'm full now, I don't need to eat more, is actually this signaling of foods and digesting of these foods takes place via these bacteria that we have in our body. So because of that, we can say from an objective view, the effect of food or medicine will be different on different people. If someone has good bacteria, for example, people who eat a lot of fermented food, uh, idli, dosa, kimchi in Korea, you have pickles which are fermented, yogurt, uh, curd, uh, cheeses, some specific types of cheese, not American cheese. American cheese is not cheese. It's called American cheese, but there's no cheese in that. So specific types of cheeses that are fermented in a certain way, you're actually eating those bacteria which help you in digesting the food better and in getting the energy that you need to get from it. Some people also have bacteria that can digest the cellulose, for example. Similarly, but others might not have. An interesting fact: mother's milk, the breast milk from the mother, when the baby is drinking the milk from a mother's breast, actually the breast milk has food not only for baby, the baby gets the milk, but mother's milk also has special kinds of triglycerides that are good only for the bacteria in the baby's gut. So the mother's milk is not only feeding the baby, but these specific kinds of triglycerides in the mother's milk are also feeding the bacteria in the baby's gut, which is quite interesting, because just see how nature was able to concoct this thing. It's nothing less than a miracle for me. So that's the objective part. That's what most people have. And there are ways in which you can change a person's way of digesting certain foods. Just change their gut bacteria. And there's more and more research going on that front. Yeah. The second part, which unfortunately affects us more, is the subjective feeling of a food. Take, for example, uh, let's let's take the example for example, in India, in northern India, in my native place of Haryana, I was told by my parents and my grandparents and the neighbors, everybody around me, when I was a kid, I was told that you can't have milk and yogurt at the same time, and if you do, then you will vomit it out. And I believed this thing all along. And so I would avoid these things. And I was also told that you should not eat yogurt or curd at night. And I would believe that. You should not eat, for example, buttermilk at night. Anything that's sour tasting, you should not eat at night. And I believed them all along. Then I went to university, and sometimes you have to go and eat. University days, you eat whatever you can get, wherever you can get, and whenever you can get. And that broke this 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 thing in my brain, in my mind, that you cannot eat buttermilk or yogurt at night, otherwise you will vomit it out. I didn't. So what I mean to say by citing this personal example, of course, it's just a personal example, but these kind of things happen more often than not. For example, in Japan, I know there are two big areas. One is called Kanto, where you have Tokyo. Tokyo is situated in the Kanto region, and the other one is called Kinki, in which the main city is Osaka. Osaka is the main city in the Kinki region. Now, interestingly enough, we think that Japan is a homogeneous country. People look and eat and speak the same thing, but actually, no. The eating habits are very, very different. So people in Kanto, they like this fermented beans, soybean food called natto. Now, I personally don't like natto. So what is natto is that you take soybeans and you leave them, you put some bacteria in it, and that ferments this soybeans. And so it stinks, to be honest. You can, if you smell it, you can't smell it. It's just very, very it doesn't smell good at all to me. I've tried to eat it 3 times, but every time I failed. And so, but if you go to any hotel, any business hotel, in the breakfast, you have this. So people just take a natto packet, open it, mix it, and they eat it. And I can't even see people eating it. So gross to me. And the same goes for Osaka people. Most Osaka people don't like natto. It's the Kanto people who like natto. Most Kinki people from Osaka, don't like it as much as people from Tokyo like it. Why? Just the culture, different cultures. And I can cite you examples from different parts in the UK. People in, for example, Scotland like foods which people in London, in England, don't like at all. You have Marmite. Some people love it famously, some people don't. So there is an objective part of this debate, but there's the bigger part. I would say maybe about 60-70% of what you perceive to be good or bad food for your body is because of the culture around you tells you so. Now, the reason why what you are told subjectively works on you is because, and of course on me to some extent, I would say, is because we are all social creatures, and we are all affected by what we call uh, the placebo effect. So there's the placebo effect is the major part. Placebo or nocebo. Nocebo is you just get a negative message and you just believe it to be true, and it actually then becomes a truly negative thing. Placebo effect is you get a messaging from a trusted source, such as your neighborhood, a doctor, a priest, or whoever, and then you just start believing in it, and it becomes true just because you believe in it. So, for example, some people believe in North India, people believe that eating rice will make you slimmer. It's much more healthier. But I lived in South India for about 3 years, 3 to 4 years, and there people believe that if you eat bread, wheat bread, roti, you will get slimmer. So people just don't like the everyday food that they eat, and they think the exotic foods are much healthier. So there are all of these subjective conditioning and framing that also affect the way you take food or a medication, positively or negatively. So that's the short of it. Okay, the next question is, why are there zombie-like homeless people in some cities in the US? Yes, very scary. I saw them on YouTube videos. Yes, you see them, and I don't want to get into politics, but in more and more states run by Democrats, you see this situation because what you have done is, and I don't know the positives and negatives of that. I'm not a political person. I'm not much interested in politics, especially if it's to do with. I'm very interested in issue-based politics, but I'm not interested in identity-based politics or the group-based. Like, okay, this is your group identity, and so you should do this. But unfortunately, in most states that are run by Democrats, including California uh, and other states, they have this problem where they have decriminalized taking these drugs that can, for example, uh, if you take drugs for medicinal purposes, okay, no problem with that. But if you take drugs such as marijuana and marijuana is not that dangerous, to be honest. In some festivals, people around the world use them, but in moderate quantities. But when you concentrate it and when you chemically, change it by adding certain chemicals to it and make it more concentrated, then it becomes problem. And so people start taking these medicines, taking these drugs, and then they become addicted to them. And so uh, they what do? Well, they are always in the trance. They cannot work, they cannot focus on anything, and they become addicted, so they want more and more of it. And so I've seen some parts of, for example, Los Angeles, uh, some parts of many cities in the progressive so-called democrat run states. In many cities you'll find one or two places where there are a lot of homeless people, and of course, it's not their fault because they are addicted to it. But I think that the government should do something so that they can get these addicted people out of the poverty and the vicious circle of then joblessness, homelessness, and then creating, uh, situations, uh, zombie-like homeless people living situations on YouTube channels. So I'm in nobody's favor here. I also don't like the Republican stance on zero tolerance, but I also don't like this free hand, just showing sympathy at all costs to irresponsible people. Maybe you can take example from Spanish government. They decriminalized marijuana, but they also had a very uh, good healthcare system, a universal healthcare system in place where you could seek help. So they decriminalized it, but they had help ready because they already had a very strong universal healthcare system in place. In America, decriminalizing or zero tolerance both are uh, extreme steps, especially when you don't have universal healthcare. So that's my 2 cents. As I said, I'm not very interested in politics. I'm more interested in science and objectivity and things like that. Okay, next one is, what is your five advice to people in their mid 30s? Oh, that's a very generic question, general question. Well, I'm not much of an advice person, but I would just say that, you know, what I believe in is that you should always seek objectivity. You should always go for objective truths, both in your personal and professional lives. That's advice number one. Second, uh, follow minimalism, cancel, as we say it. So don't try to don't suffer from keeping up with the Joneses syndrome. Don't try to get